Alaska is one of the few places left on Earth where nature still holds absolute authority. It is a land defined by scale, silence, and extremes, where mountains rise above the clouds, where rivers carve valleys older than recorded history, and where entire ecosystems still follow ancient rhythms shaped by ice, seasons, and migration. For anyone who travels here, there is a moment when the world suddenly feels larger, wilder, and more untouched than expected. This vast region stretches across thousands of kilometers, from the frozen shores of the Arctic Ocean to the lush rainforests of the southeast. Winters can last for months, with the sun barely rising above the horizon, while summers bring endless daylight and landscapes filled with motion and life. In many places, there are no roads, no cities, and almost no signs of human presence. The land itself sets the pace, and people adapt to its rhythms rather than the other way around. But Alaska is not empty. For thousands of years, indigenous communities have lived here, developing deep knowledge of the land, the animals, and the changing seasons. Their traditions reflect a relationship with nature built on observation, respect, and survival in environments that challenge even the most experienced travelers. Every journey across sea ice, every hunting season, every river route was shaped by generations of learning. Even today, Alaska remains a place where wildlife moves freely across open landscapes. Glaciers continue to carve mountains. Volcanoes rise from the ocean. Salmon return to the same rivers year after year, feeding forests and animals alike. Bears, wolves, eagles, whales, and countless other species live here in numbers that remind us what the natural world once looked like. This documentary is a journey across that world, through ancient forests, powerful glaciers, volcanic islands, Arctic plains, and the mountain ranges that define the last frontier. It is a look at the forces that shaped Alaska, at the people who call it home, and at the ecosystems that remain among the most intact on the planet. Alaska challenges our sense of scale. It challenges our understanding of wilderness, and it reminds us how rare it is to find a place where nature still leads. Alaska's scale defies comparison. It is larger than many countries and wider than most of the continental United States, stretching across thousands of kilometers from the forests of the southeast to the frozen shores of the Arctic. Even the most detailed maps fail to capture how enormous and varied this land truly is. Distances here are so vast that they reshape your sense of space. Traveling from one region to another can feel like crossing from one world into the next. Dominating the central portion of the state is the Alaska Range, a massive arc of peaks that stretches for more than 1,000 kilometers. At its center stands Denali, the tallest mountain in North America. When the skies clear, Denali rises with a scale that is difficult to comprehend. Even from great distances, it fills the horizon. Its steep vertical relief makes it one of the most visually dramatic mountains in the world, appearing almost unreal to those who see it for the first time. Farther north lies the Brooks Range, an ancient mountain system that marks the boundary between forest and tundra. Its jagged ridges and broad valleys form the gateway to the Arctic. Beyond this line, trees disappear and the landscape opens into rolling tundra plains that run all the way to the Beaufort Sea. In summer, this region bursts with plant life and migrating animals. In winter, it becomes an expanse of snow and silence. In contrast to the tundra and mountains, Southeast Alaska feels almost like another world. Here, the Tongass rainforest covers vast swaths of coastline with dense stands of spruce and hemlock. Rain falls for much of the year, nourishing moss-covered logs and ferns that grow beneath towering trees. This region receives some of the highest rainfall totals in North America, creating an ecosystem rich in biodiversity. To the west, the Aleutian Islands extend far into the Pacific Ocean, forming a chain of volcanic peaks shaped by powerful geological forces. Earthquakes, eruptions, and strong winds make this region one of the most dynamic environments in the state. The islands are scattered across thousands of kilometers, stretching toward Asia in a long arc that defines the edge of the North American continent. What unites these contrasting landscapes is their scale. Alaska is not just large, it is overwhelmingly large. It is a place where nature sets the pace, where seasons define movement, and where human presence feels small compared to the forces that shape the land. Understanding Alaska begins with accepting that it cannot be experienced all at once. It is a place of many worlds, each vast, each distinct, and each essential to the identity of the last frontier. Long before explorers mapped Alaska's coastlines or crossed its mountain ranges, this land was already home to cultures shaped by 10,000 years of knowledge and adaptation. Each region of Alaska supported its own way of life, influenced by climate, wildlife, and the rhythm of the seasons. These cultures were not isolated communities, but sophisticated societies that developed skills, traditions, and technologies perfectly tuned to some of the most challenging environments on Earth. In the far north, along the Arctic coast, lived the Inupiat. Their world was defined by sea ice, long winters, and the migrations of whales, seals, and walrus. Every aspect of life revolved around the ability to read the movement of ice and understand its dangers. For the Inupiat, survival was not simply a matter of strength or endurance. It was a mastery of patterns, the sound of ice shifting beneath the wind, the timing of marine migrations, and the subtle changes in weather that signaled when travel was safe and when it could turn deadly. To the west and southwest, the Yupik built their lives in the vast deltas and wetlands where rivers constantly changed their shape. Here, the land transformed dramatically each season as snowmelt, tides, and storms carved new channels. The Yupik developed refined fishing tools, intricate hunting strategies, and community practices adapted to a place that never stayed still for long. Their knowledge of river currents, fish behavior, and weather cycles allowed them to thrive in an environment that outsiders would have found unpredictable and overwhelming. In the rainforest regions of the southeast, the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian developed complex social structures shaped by the ocean, rivers, and massive cedar trees. Their monumental carvings, ceremonial masks, and clan traditions were not simply art, but visual histories. Records of ancestry, identity, and relationship to the land. Trade networks extended across the coast, linking communities through shared practices and mutual respect. Across Alaska, these diverse cultures shared one essential principle: life depended on understanding the land rather than forcing it to adapt to human needs. Knowledge came from observation, from the way snow drifted across the ground, from the behavior of animals before a storm, from the sound of ice forming or breaking. This understanding created communities that were resilient, adaptable, and deeply connected to their surroundings. When Russian explorers arrived in the 18th century, they encountered societies with long histories, advanced technologies, and a profound relationship with the land. The arrival of outsiders brought new tools, new challenges, and eventually, sweeping changes. But Alaska's indigenous cultures endured and adapted, continuing to shape the identity of the region today. Their presence remains central to Alaska's story, a living connection to the past and a vital part of the state's future. The story of European arrival begins with the vast ambitions of the Russian Empire. By the early 1700s, Russia had already extended its reach across Siberia, driven by explorers and traders searching for valuable furs. At that time, sea otter pelts were among the most prized commodities in the world. Their dense, luxurious fur commanded high prices in China, creating enormous incentive for traders to push farther east. In 1741, an expedition led by Danish navigator Vitus Bering, sailing under the Russian flag, crossed the cold waters of the North Pacific and reached the shores of what is now Alaska. Although Bering himself did not survive the return journey, his voyage confirmed that new lands lay across the sea, lands rich in wildlife and opportunity. News of the discovery spread quickly, and soon Russian traders began making the dangerous journey across the Pacific. As Russian presence expanded, interactions with indigenous communities increased. At times, these encounters involved cooperation and trade. At other times, they brought conflict, misunderstanding, and hardship. Indigenous groups had their own long-standing systems of governance, trade, and territorial boundaries. The arrival of newcomers disrupted these systems, creating tensions and reshaping relationships throughout the region. Russian influence did not spread evenly across Alaska. Much of the interior and far north remained untouched by colonial presence, separated by vast distances and challenging terrain. Coastal regions, however, experienced profound change. New technologies and materials entered local communities, while diseases introduced from abroad had devastating impacts. The era was marked by both exchange and suffering, shaping a complex legacy that still echoes in Alaska today. Over time, the fur trade began to decline. Sea otter populations dropped sharply due to overhunting, and the once lucrative industry became unsustainable. Maintaining distant settlements across the Pacific grew increasingly expensive for Russia, especially as geopolitical pressures mounted in Europe and Asia. By the mid-19th century, Russian interest in Alaska had weakened significantly. Although Russia's presence in Alaska lasted little more than a century, its influence remains visible today. Orthodox churches still stand in coastal communities. Russian place names appear across islands and peninsulas, and families of mixed ancestry preserve cultural traditions connected to that era. This chapter of exploration and exchange marked the beginning of Alaska's transformation into a crossroads of cultures, a place shaped by both ancient traditions and the shifting ambitions of expanding empires. When the United States purchased Alaska in 1867, few people understood the value of the land that had just changed hands. To many, it seemed like an empty wilderness with no real economic or strategic significance. Early American officials were unsure how to govern the new territory, and for years Alaska existed in a kind of limbo. Claimed, but not fully developed or integrated. That perception changed dramatically in the late 19th century, when the discovery of gold transformed Alaska from a remote curiosity into a destination of dreams, ambition, and desperation. The Klondike Gold Rush began in 1896 after prospectors uncovered rich deposits in the far northwest. As news of the discovery spread, tens of thousands of people from across the United States, Canada, and beyond set out for the far north, hoping to strike fortune in a land they barely understood. Reaching the goldfields was a journey as difficult as any in American history. Most prospectors traveled through the coastal town of Skagway, a bustling, chaotic settlement that sprang up almost overnight. From there, they faced steep mountain passes, freezing rivers, and unpredictable weather. Many arrived without proper equipment, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead. The Chilkoot Pass, one of the most infamous routes, required climbers to ascend a near-vertical slope carved into the snow and ice, often carrying supplies weighing more than their own bodies. Photographs from that era show endless lines of stampeders climbing the pass, step by step, in one of the most grueling challenges of the gold rush. As the initial excitement of the Klondike faded, new discoveries continued to draw prospectors deeper into Alaska. Gold was found in Nome, Fairbanks, and other parts of the interior. Each discovery sparked another wave of movement, building towns, businesses, and transportation networks. The era also introduced a range of new industries, including fishing, timber, and eventually oil, which would later become central to Alaska's economy. The early 20th century marked a period of political development as well. Alaska transitioned from a loosely governed district into a more structured territory, gaining representation and establishing local institutions. Yet life remained challenging. Harsh winters, limited infrastructure, and isolation tested even the strongest settlers. Still, people came, drawn by opportunity, by the freedom of the frontier, and by the sense that Alaska offered something rarely found elsewhere. The American era created a foundation for modern Alaska, a place shaped by ambition, struggle, and the enduring pull of natural riches. The gold rush did more than attract prospectors. It connected Alaska to the wider world and revealed a region far more complex and valuable than early skeptics had imagined. In the decades that followed, Alaska would continue to evolve as new industries emerged, new communities formed, and the land's vast potential became increasingly clear. The frontier had opened, and its story was only beginning. Southeast Alaska feels like a world apart. Unlike the wind-swept tundra of the north or the vast interior plains, this region is defined by water, mountains, and one of the largest temperate rainforests on Earth. The Tongass National Forest, stretching across thousands of islands and fjords, is a landscape shaped by constant rain, deep green forests, and wildlife that depends on both land and sea. It is a place where the boundaries between ecosystems blur, creating one of the most biologically rich environments in North America. The Tongass is dominated by towering spruce and hemlock trees, many of which have stood for centuries. Moss covers fallen logs, ferns crowd the forest floor, and thick layers of lichen cling to branches that drip with moisture. Rainfall in some parts of southeast Alaska can exceed several meters each year, creating an environment that supports an incredible diversity of plant and animal life. Walking through this forest feels like stepping into a world untouched by time, where small streams cut through quiet valleys and sunlight filters through the canopy in narrow beams. Along the coast, steep mountains drop directly into narrow fjords carved by ancient glaciers. These waterways are home to humpback whales, orcas, sea lions, and otters. On land, black bears and coastal brown bears fish for salmon in clear streams during the summer months. Eagles perch on tall branches overlooking the water, while migrating birds from across the Pacific stop to rest in wetlands and estuaries. The forest and ocean are inseparable here, each supporting the other in a complex cycle that has sustained life for thousands of years. When European explorers first arrived in the 18th century, they were struck by the scale and richness of the forest. Later, during the 20th century, Southeast Alaska became a center for the timber industry. Large-scale logging reshaped parts of the landscape, creating economic opportunities, but also raising concerns about sustainability and the long-term health of the ecosystem. Over time, debates emerged about how best to balance economic needs with environmental preservation. Today, the Tongass remains a subject of national attention. Some areas are protected to preserve old-growth forests, while others support selective logging and local industry. Tourism has become another major part of the region's economy, drawing visitors who come to experience the dramatic fjords, abundant wildlife, and rich cultural heritage. Cruise ships, fishing boats, and small aircraft bring people to remote communities that offer a glimpse into the unique rhythm of life in Southeast Alaska. The Tongass is more than a forest. It is a living system that connects ocean, land, animals, and people in a delicate balance. To understand Alaska, one must understand the power and complexity of this remarkable region, a place where life depends on water, weather, and the steady resilience of the forest itself. Alaska is a landscape carved by ice. Even today, long after the great ice sheets of the past have retreated, glaciers continue to sculpt mountains, carve valleys, and shape coastlines. These massive rivers of ice move slowly but with extraordinary power, leaving behind a record of the forces that created much of the state's geography. To understand Alaska, one must understand the glaciers that still define so many of its regions. A glacier is more than a frozen block of snow. It is a living system, constantly shifting, melting, and reforming as seasons change. In Alaska, glaciers can stretch for dozens of kilometers, flowing from high mountain peaks toward the ocean. They form where snow accumulates faster than it melts, compressing over time into dense blue ice. Under its own weight, the ice begins to move, inching downhill and carrying with it rock, soil, and anything else caught in its path. One of the most iconic places to witness the power of glaciers is Glacier Bay in Southeast Alaska. Only a few centuries ago, this entire region was filled with solid ice stretching far into the ocean. As the glacier retreated, it revealed steep mountains, deep fjords, and sheltered inlets that are now home to whales, seals, bears, and countless seabirds. Scientists studying the area have documented some of the fastest glacial retreat in recorded history, offering a rare opportunity to observe how landscapes evolve in real time. Glacial movement shapes more than the land. It influences rivers, lakes, and even ocean ecosystems. As glaciers grind across bedrock, they create fine particles known as glacial flour. When this material is carried into rivers and coastal waters, it gives the water a milky blue color and provides nutrients that support algae, fish, and other marine life. This connection between ice and ocean highlights the interconnectedness of Alaska's natural systems, where changes in one environment ripple outward to affect many others. Alaska's glaciers are also important indicators of environmental change. Scientists monitor their size, movement, and melt rates to understand long-term climate trends. Some glaciers are retreating rapidly, losing kilometers of ice over the course of a few decades. Others remain stable, or even advance under specific regional conditions. This complexity reflects the dynamic nature of Alaska's climate, where local geography and weather patterns create different outcomes across the state. Alaska's glaciers are not simply remnants of the past. They are active participants in the present, moving, melting, and reforming in response to a world that is always changing. Their presence reminds us that landscapes are never truly finished. They are works in progress, shaped by time, temperature, and the steady persistence of ice. Across Alaska, few species are as important or as influential as salmon. These fish are more than a source of food. They are a force that connects oceans, rivers, forests, animals, and people in a cycle that has shaped Alaska's landscapes for thousands of years. To understand the state's ecosystems, from coastal fjords to interior forest, one must first understand the salmon that migrate through them each year. Salmon begin their lives in freshwater streams, hatching in gravel beds fed by snowmelt and groundwater. After spending their early years in rivers and lakes, they make an extraordinary journey to the ocean, where they grow and mature before returning to the exact waterways where they were born. This return migration can cover hundreds or even thousands of kilometers, guided by instincts and environmental cues that scientists are still trying to fully understand. Bears, wolves, eagles, and many other animals depend on returning salmon as a primary food source. Along coastal rivers, brown bears gather during the summer and fall to catch salmon as they swim upstream. The nutrients from these fish support the bears through long winters and help young cubs grow strong. Wildlife biologists have documented how bear populations rise and fall with the abundance of salmon, demonstrating how deeply these species are connected. Indigenous communities across Alaska have relied on salmon for thousands of years, building traditions, food systems, and cultural practices around the seasonal cycle of migration. Fishing techniques were refined over generations, and knowledge of salmon behavior became essential for survival. For many families, the arrival of salmon each year remains a central event, a time of gathering, preparation, and connection to ancestors who lived by the same rhythms. Modern commercial and subsistence fisheries continue to depend on salmon as a valuable resource. Alaska's waters support some of the most productive salmon runs in the world, and careful management has become essential to ensure long-term sustainability. Scientists, local communities, and state agencies work together to monitor populations, protect spawning grounds, and manage harvests according to complex biological and environmental factors. Yet despite these challenges, salmon remain at the heart of Alaska's natural systems. They nourish wildlife, sustain forests, and support communities from coastal villages to inland towns. Their annual migrations are among the most remarkable natural events on Earth, a reminder of the power and resilience of life in the North. In Alaska, salmon are more than a species. They are a thread that ties together water, land, animals, and people in a timeless cycle that shapes the identity of the last frontier. Alaska is one of the few places on Earth where wildlife still shapes the identity of the land. From the dense forests of the southeast to the open tundra of the far north, animals here live on a scale that reflects the vastness of the region itself. Every ecosystem, from mountain ranges to coastal fjords, supports species that have adapted to survive in environments defined by extreme cold, long migrations, and dramatic seasonal changes. Along Alaska's southern coastline, brown bears grow larger than almost anywhere else in the world. These coastal giants rely heavily on salmon runs that return to the rivers each summer. During peak season, bears gather along streams in remarkable numbers, standing in rushing water as they search for fish. Their behavior is precise and learned. Some bears specialize in catching salmon mid-leap, while others wait patiently in shallow pools. The abundance of salmon allows these bears to build the fat reserves needed to survive long winters, when they retreat into dens and enter months of hibernation. Moose, the giants of Alaska's forests, also play a central role in the state's ecosystems. Standing taller than a horse and weighing hundreds of kilograms, they dominate wetlands, river valleys, and forest edges. Moose depend on willow, birch, and aquatic plants, shifting their diets as seasons change. Though strong and powerful, they are vulnerable to deep snow, harsh winters, and predators like bears and wolves. Their populations mirror the challenges of the landscape, rising and falling with the conditions around them. Bird life is equally remarkable. Alaska supports one of the largest populations of bald eagles in the United States. These birds patrol coastlines, rivers, and lakes, scanning for fish or scavenging along shorelines. In the Arctic and subarctic, snowy owls, gyrfalcons, and golden eagles hunt across open terrain, relying on sharp eyesight and silent flight to survive the long winter months. Off the coast, the richness of Alaska's marine ecosystems becomes even more apparent. Humpback whales migrate each year from tropical breeding grounds to feed in nutrient-rich northern waters. Orcas move through fjords in tight-knit family groups, communicating with distinct calls passed down through generations. Sea otters float among kelp forests, using stones to open shellfish, one of the few examples of tool use in marine mammals. Each species reflects a different aspect of the ocean's complexity and the delicate balance that sustains life here. For many people, witnessing Alaska's wildlife offers a glimpse into what the natural world once looked like before modern development transformed much of the planet. Here, animals still roam across immense distances, following ancient patterns that continue despite the challenges of a changing world. Alaska remains one of the last true strongholds of wild nature, a place where wildlife does not simply exist, but defines the very character of the land. Far to the north, beyond the great mountain ranges and vast interior forests, lies one of Alaska's most extreme landscapes, the Arctic. This region stretches across tundra plains, frozen coastlines, and the icy waters of the Beaufort and Chukchi Seas. It is a place defined by long winters, short summers, and the constant presence of wind, snow, and shifting ice. For many people, the Arctic feels like the edge of the world. But for the wildlife and communities that live here, it is home, a dynamic environment where life depends on adaptation, resilience, and ancient knowledge. The Arctic tundra may appear barren at first glance, especially in winter when the land is covered in snow and daylight lasts only a few hours. But beneath this frozen surface lies a complex ecosystem that comes alive when summer arrives. As the sun returns and temperatures rise, the tundra bursts into color. Mosses, lichens, sedges, and small flowering plants spread across the landscape in a brief but intense growing season. This plant life supports an entire web of animals that depend on this short window of abundance. Along the coast, the Arctic Ocean shapes the identity of the region. Sea ice expands and contracts with the seasons, creating a constantly shifting environment for animals that depend on it. Polar bears, the largest land carnivores on Earth, rely on sea ice as a platform for hunting seals. Their survival is tied to the rhythms of ice formation and melt, and each year they cover enormous distances as they search for food across frozen seas. The people of the Arctic have built their cultures around this environment for countless generations. The Inupiat and other northern communities developed deep knowledge of sea ice, animal behavior, and seasonal patterns. Their hunting strategies, tools, and travel routes evolved to match the conditions of a land where mistakes could be fatal. This knowledge is still essential today, helping communities navigate a changing climate while preserving traditions that remain at the heart of Arctic identity. Scientists study the Arctic closely, as the region offers critical insights into global climate trends. Sea ice levels, permafrost stability, and weather patterns in the far north all influence ecosystems far beyond Alaska. Many of the changes visible in the Arctic, from thawing ground to shifting animal migrations, reflect broader environmental shifts across the planet. The region has become a powerful reminder of how interconnected global systems are and how sensitive they can be to change. Despite its harsh conditions, the Arctic is a place of remarkable beauty. The northern lights dance across winter skies in waves of green and blue. The midnight sun casts long shadows across summer tundra. And throughout the year, the landscape maintains a sense of vastness that few places in the world can match. The Arctic is not empty. It is alive, shaped by ice, wind, wildlife, and people who have learned to live with the land rather than against it. It remains one of Alaska's most defining and awe-inspiring regions. Rising high above the surrounding wilderness, Denali dominates the landscape of central Alaska. At more than 6,000 meters, it is the tallest mountain in North America and one of the most dramatic peaks on Earth. Its vertical relief is so extreme that even distant travelers are often surprised by how suddenly it appears on the horizon. A massive tower of rock, ice, and snow that seems to stand apart from everything around it. Denali is not just a mountain, it is the heart of the Alaska Range. A sweeping arc of rugged peaks that stretches for more than 1,000 kilometers across the state. The Alaska Range was shaped by powerful geological forces, created as tectonic plates collided and pushed layers of rock skyward. Over millions of years, glaciers carved deep valleys into the mountains, sculpting ridges, cliffs, and basins that still define the region today. The result is a landscape marked by rugged beauty, steep granite walls, broad glacial basins, and ice fields that feed rivers flowing across the interior. Denali's elevation and position create weather patterns that can shift in moments. Clouds often form around the summit even when the sky below is clear. Winds sweep across the upper slopes with incredible force, and temperatures can remain well below freezing even in midsummer. These conditions make climbing Denali one of the most challenging mountaineering experiences in the world. Each year, climbers from across the globe attempt the ascent, facing long stretches of isolation, rapidly changing weather, and the physical demands of high altitude. Many turn back, and only a fraction reach the summit. Surrounding Denali is one of the largest protected wilderness areas in the United States, Denali National Park and Preserve. Within this vast landscape, wildlife moves freely across open tundra, dense forests, and glacial valleys. Caribou migrate through the park during seasonal movements. Moose browse in wetlands and river corridors. Wolves travel in family groups, covering long distances as they search for prey. Grizzly bears roam across wide territories, feeding on berries, roots, and ground squirrels. The park's intact ecosystems offer visitors a rare opportunity to see animals living in an environment shaped more by natural forces than by human influence. The rivers flowing from the Alaska Range connect the mountains to the lowlands, carrying glacial meltwater across the interior. These waterways support fish, nourish wetlands, and shape the movement of wildlife. They also provide lifelines for remote communities and travelers who rely on river routes for access to the backcountry. In this region, the connection between mountains, water, and life is unmistakable. For Alaska's Indigenous peoples, the Alaska Range holds deep cultural significance. Stories and oral histories describe the formation of the mountains, the movement of animals, and the relationship between people and the land. These traditions remain an important part of cultural identity and help guide understanding of seasonal change, wildlife behavior, and connections within the ecosystem. Denali is more than a geographic landmark. It is a symbol of Alaska's scale, power, and natural beauty. Its sheer size challenges perceptions of what a mountain can be, while the surrounding wilderness reveals the complexity of life that thrives in such a vast and dynamic environment. For many who visit the region, experiencing Denali is a moment of perspective, a reminder of how small human presence is compared to the forces that shape the Earth. The Alaska Range continues to define the landscape of central Alaska, influencing weather, wildlife, and the flow of rivers for hundreds of kilometers. it stands as one of the great natural wonders of the continent, a testament to the geological forces that shape the land and to the enduring wildness that makes Alaska unlike any other place on Earth. Stretching far into the Pacific Ocean, the Aleutian Islands form one of the most remote and dramatic chains of land on Earth. These islands arc westward from mainland Alaska in a long curve of volcanic peaks, each shaped by the collision of tectonic plates deep beneath the ocean. The Aleutians mark a boundary between continents and seas, a frontier defined by constant motion, shifting weather, and the powerful forces of geology. Nearly every island in the Aleutian chain is volcanic in origin. Some rise sharply from the water as steep, symmetrical cones. Others form low, rolling landscapes covered in tundra grasses and moss. Many of these volcanoes are still active, sending plumes of steam into the air and reminding anyone nearby that this land is alive with geological energy. Earthquakes ripple through the region, and occasional eruptions send ash clouds high into the sky. Yet, despite these dramatic forces, the islands support surprisingly rich ecosystems. What defines the Aleutians more than anything else is the wind. Storms sweep across the North Pacific with tremendous force, bringing heavy rain, thick fog, and gusts strong enough to shake buildings. Weather changes quickly and often without warning. One moment the horizon might be clear, and minutes later, a dense curtain of fog rolls in from the sea. For sailors, pilots, and residents, the unpredictable weather is more than an inconvenience. It is a central feature of life in the islands. But the same conditions that make travel difficult also enrich the surrounding waters. Strong winds and currents mix deep ocean layers, bringing nutrients to the surface and sustaining an incredibly productive marine ecosystem. During the 20th century, the Aleutians gained global significance. In World War II, the islands became a battleground between the United States and Japan. The islands of Attu and Kiska saw fierce conflict, making them among the few places on American soil where direct battles occurred during the war. Remnants of military installations still dot the landscape, slowly reclaimed by grass, wind, and volcanic soil. Today, the Aleutian Islands remain one of the most remote inhabited regions of Alaska. Communities here balance tradition with modern challenges, relying on fishing, maritime travel, and a deep connection to the sea. The islands serve as a reminder that Alaska is not defined solely by glaciers or mountains, but also by fire, wind, and the vast ocean that surrounds it. The Aleutians stand as one of the great frontiers of the Pacific, a place shaped by forces that continue to reshape the land and sea with every passing year. Moving away from Alaska's coastal fjords, volcanic islands, and towering mountain ranges, the land changes once again. The interior of Alaska reveals a quieter, steadier world shaped not by the ocean or by fire, but by rivers, forests, and the long rhythm of the seasons. This vast region, stretching between the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range, is defined by wide valleys, rolling hills, and the immense waterways that tie the landscape together. No river is more important to the identity of interior Alaska than the Yukon. Flowing for more than 3,000 kilometers from Canada to the Bering Sea, the Yukon is one of the longest rivers in North America. It has served as a travel route, a food source, and a cultural lifeline for countless generations. In summer, the river moves swiftly, carrying driftwood, silt, and salmon along its winding path. In winter, it freezes solid and becomes a natural highway, allowing snow machines and sleds to cross distances that would otherwise be impossible. For the communities that live along the Yukon and its tributaries, the river's cycle shapes daily life. Fishing, hunting, and gathering follow seasonal patterns passed down through generations. Many families still rely on subsistence practices not as tradition alone, but as a necessary part of survival. The land provides food, fuel, and materials, and in return, people learn to read the environment with the skill of those who depend on it intimately. The boreal forest, the dominant ecosystem of the interior, stretches across Alaska like a great green blanket. Spruce, birch, and willow trees cover the landscape, creating habitat for moose, wolves, lynx, and countless bird species. Fire plays a critical role in shaping this forest. Summer wildfires, though often dramatic, are part of a natural cycle that clears old growth and makes way for new vegetation. Many plants and animals depend on these cycles, and the forest continually regenerates and adapts. Life in interior Alaska is shaped not only by nature, but also by isolation. Many communities are accessible only by river, small aircraft, or seasonal roads. Supplies must be carefully managed, and weather determines much of what is possible. Yet this isolation also creates a strong sense of resilience and self-reliance. People build close relationships with their neighbors and with the land, maintaining traditions that reflect the challenges and rewards of living in such a remote environment. Despite modern changes, the deep connection between people and the land remains. Seasonal events still shape community life. The return of salmon, the first snowfall, the breakup of river ice in spring. Many families continue to pass down knowledge about hunting, fishing, and traveling safely across the landscape. For those who call the interior home, these practices are not simply cultural heritage, they are part of everyday living. Interior Alaska may lack the dramatic glaciers or volcanic peaks found in other regions, but it holds a quiet strength. Its rivers connect vast distances, its forests support generations of wildlife, and its communities draw meaning and identity from the land around them. This region forms the steady heart of Alaska, a place where life follows the pace of nature and where traditions endure through time and change. Alaska is often seen as one of the last great wilderness regions on Earth, a place where glaciers still carve mountains, where wildlife moves across open landscapes, and where entire ecosystems continue to follow ancient rhythms. But while Alaska feels timeless, it is not frozen in place. It is a land shaped as much by change as by endurance, and its future will depend on how people, communities, and environments adapt to shifting global conditions. Across the state, the landscape is constantly in motion. Glaciers advance and retreat. Permafrost thaws and refreezes. Rivers carve new channels as they respond to floods and seasonal patterns. Wildfires reshape vast stretches of boreal forest. These natural processes have always existed, but in recent years, they have become key indicators of wider environmental changes. Scientists visit Alaska to study these trends, recognizing the region as one of the most important natural laboratories on the planet. The effects of climate shifts can be seen in delayed sea ice formation, earlier spring thaws, and changes in the timing of salmon migrations. Some species adapt quickly, while others face challenges as their traditional habitats change. Coastal communities experience stronger storms and increased erosion, while inland regions respond to warming temperatures and altered snowfall patterns. These changes do not affect all areas equally, but together they reflect a landscape responding to global forces. For Alaska's Indigenous peoples, these transformations touch every part of life. Communities that have depended on sea ice for travel and hunting face new obstacles. Families who follow seasonal food cycles adapt to shifting patterns in wildlife behavior. At the same time, Indigenous knowledge continues to guide understanding of the land. Traditional practices, passed down for countless generations, provide insights into environmental cycles, animal movements, and long-term patterns that modern science is only beginning to fully explore. Across the state, efforts to preserve cultural heritage remain strong. Many communities work to revitalize languages, rebuild traditional tools, and teach younger generations the knowledge that sustained their ancestors. These practices do more than honor the past. They offer valuable perspectives for navigating the future. Alaska's modern economy reflects a balance between development and conservation. Fishing, tourism, energy, and shipping all play significant roles, and each industry interacts differently with the land. Protected areas such as Denali, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and large portions of the Tongass rainforest help safeguard ecosystems that have remained intact for thousands of years. At the same time, advances in renewable energy, sustainable fishing practices, and environmental management offer new ways to support both communities and ecosystems. The future of Alaska will depend on choices made today. Choices about how to protect wildlife, manage natural resources, support rural communities, and maintain the unique balance between tradition and innovation. The challenges are significant, but so is the resilience of the people who live here and the strength of the landscapes that define the state. What sets Alaska apart is not only its wilderness, but its sense of scale. Mountains rise above cloud lines. Rivers stretch across entire regions. Animals migrate over distances longer than many countries. Communities adapt to conditions that would overwhelm most places. Everything in Alaska, the land, the people, the wildlife, reflects endurance and connection. As the world continues to change, Alaska remains a reminder of what the Earth once was and what it can still be. A place where nature leads, a place where culture and land are inseparable. A place where the wild still has room to breathe. The story of Alaska does not end with its past. It continues to evolve, shaped by the land, guided by its people, and carried forward by the enduring power of the last frontier.